While most cruisers have not been on an ultra-luxury cruise yet, all of us are intrigued and want to peek behind the curtain to see what it's really like on board them and to discover exactly how an ultra-luxury line, ship and cruise is different from regular cruise lines. So after cruising on 5 regular lines recently, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Holland America, Celebrity and Princess, I decided to book myself on 2 different ultra-luxury lines to find out and compare my experiences on those regular lines to these new ultra-luxury line experiences. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge, and as always I booked and paid for my cruises on Silversea Silver and Regent 7 Seas Splendor at the going rate via my travel agent, and this is what I discovered, a lot of which surprised me. The first of the 4 big questions I had going in was, would their smaller ships feel overly limiting? After action-packed daily programs, loads of venues and many dining options on those recent regular lines, I worried I would find the lack of choice stifling and the daily program sparse and possibly too highbrow on these ultra-luxury lines. But before I could even explore these size-related concerns, something struck me as soon as I boarded, and that was how understated ultra-luxury ships are versus regular cruise line ships. These days, regular cruise ships are increasingly going for the wow factor, big soaring atriums, high-tech theatres and unique features. For example, my Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas ship had 6 different themed districts, including the unique Central Park packed with plants, and massive entertainment venues, water park and rides. Sun Princess had a huge multi-level glass-sided sphere-shaped atrium which hosted events all day and night. Celebrity Edge had the magic carpet on the side of the ship that's a bar, dining venue and moves to sea level to become the tender platform. All the regular lines I've been on are focusing on having standout glitzy features or attractions on their ships. But I found ultra-luxury ships are not feature-based at all. They were rather muted and understated, like a boutique hotel. They weren't flashy, had more muted decor, and didn't really rely on gimmicks or flashy wow features to stand out. So by not having these features, I did wonder what the standout differences would actually be. I mentioned earlier I wondered if size and the number of passengers would be limiting. It wasn't as limiting as I thought, and it actually had some upsides. Of course, the scale is dramatically different. Regular cruise ships carry between 2,000 and 7,000 passengers, while ultra-luxury ships carry between 400 and 1,000. On Silvernova, I had 728, and on Regent Splendor, 750. And this revealed one of the biggest differences immediately. No queues for anything ever, and always able to get a seat in a restaurant or bar or by the pool. And while there was less choice than on regular lines, there was a surprising amount of choice on both Silvernova and Regent Splendor. For example, Regent Splendor, which I'm most recently off, had 3 lounges with bars, Observation Lounge, Splendor Lounge and Meridian Lounge, as well as a pool deck bar. There was a good-sized pool with hot tubs and others on a spa deck. It had a fitness center, spa, casino, cooking classroom, library, coffee shop, shops, paddle tennis court, crazy golf course, deck games, a walking running track, and 6 dining venues, which I will talk about later. While regular cruise ships have way more choices, I was surprised at how much choice and options there were onboard ultra-luxury ships. Though they do have fewer choice of cabin types, of course. On regular cruise lines, they have cabins for a wide range of budgets and preferences, including affordable inside cabins, ocean view cabins, balcony cabins and suites. Many even offer family rooms and some have solo cabins too. Ultra-luxury ships only have what they call suites, although, as I discovered, most suites are more a large balcony cabin with space for seating and dining rather than an actual suite. For example, on Regent Splendor, I booked a Serenity suite, which was a good-sized cabin, but really was like an oversized balcony cabin on regular lines. While for the same price, I could get a large and proper suite on a regular cruise line. For example, for roughly the same price, I could get a huge Neptune suite on Holland America at probably double the size, and on Princess, more of a proper suite with a separate seating and dining area and separate bedroom area. Of course, Another big difference I found was entertainment. Regular cruise lines are focused on offering constant activities throughout the day and well into the night, with big, bold production shows. Their program is designed to offer loads to keep cruisers busy, and we don't really have to think of things to entertain ourselves. I found ultra luxury rather different. It was less action-packed, with a light program often run by one cruise director and an assistant, with help from the production singers and dancers. On those recent regular cruises, I got Broadway-style shows, trivia, games, pool parties, live music across various venues, enrichment, and so much more. I counted on my Symphony of the Seas and Sun Princess trips around 80 activities each day. On those two ultra-luxury trips, however, there was dramatically less. There was some trivia, bingo, enrichment talks, craft classes, occasional dance classes, and some live music. In the evenings, there was simple themed song and dance shows with 4 singers and 4 dancers. The evenings were more about dining and socializing, whereas on regular cruise ships, it's about being entertained all the time. Another big difference I noticed was around service. Ultra luxury has a higher crew to passenger ratio of almost 1:1. However, the crew are still from the same places and have the same mix. So mostly European senior crew, and the waiting, cabin, bar and ship operation staff from the Philippines, India, Indonesia and African countries like South Africa and Zimbabwe. I felt the real difference was around what the staff are there for and how they're trained. On regular lines including Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Princess and Holland America, service is focused on how the crew can be fast and efficient, get as much done, deal with as many passengers as they can quickly as possible. But I found ultra luxury service was more interactive and slower. Now, not slow in terms of time, but in that crew could spend time talking, understanding what I liked, and of course getting to know my name. I was called by name on those ultra luxury ships throughout every department wherever I was on the ship. Staff also learnt my habits and preferences, both because there's fewer people to remember, but that's also what they're trained and required to do. Linked to this point on service, I had one unexpected discovery. This was that ultra luxury is way lower tech than regular cruise lines. Those lines are using and relying increasingly on technology, especially as their ships get bigger. On regular lines, I had to use online check-in and apps to ensure a smooth cruising experience. I was encouraged to and found it easiest to use their app to access the daily program and menus, book packages like Wi-Fi and drinks, plan and book specialty dining, reservations and kind of times when I want to do anytime dining in the main dining room, to book excursions, and even now on some of them to retrieve my excursion ticket, and on and on and on. Now I can see why regular cruise lines want us to self-serve on apps. It reduces time crew have to interact with us, and they can cope with so many more people on board. Princess even has the wearable medallion so crew can identify us and call us by name without learning it. But on those ultra luxury lines, I found them much less high tech. On Regent, they didn't even have an app. On Silvernova, they had sort of an app, which was more like a series of web pages on a browser with limited functions like ability to review PDFs of the daily program and the menus. Both of the ships, by the way, had interactive TVs, which offered some of the same features. Certainly I found on those ultra luxury lines, I did not need my mobile phone to get many things done. But on regular lines these days, it's almost impossible not to have a mobile phone on hand. But having digested the findings of my first big question about differences between regular and ultra luxury based on the size, what about my next big question? This was all about dining. I wondered whether dining would be dramatically elevated and would be like eating in the fanciest restaurants in a big city with gourmet and intricate food all of the time. But in reality, it wasn't. Like on all the regular cruise lines, I found the menus to be pretty classic, with many standards and similar dishes, because I assume that's what we cruisers want. Though I did find 6 key differences. First, the menus and choice on them was significantly larger than on any regular cruise line I've been on recently. Regular lines seem to be cutting back to simplify and hold down costs, but both ultra luxury lines I went on had large sprawling menus for every meal. Second, Unlike regular lines, there were no added surcharges for some dishes like steaks or lobsters, or for ordering more than one entree. Third, everything seemed a higher grade or more premium, from the cuts of meat, quality of the ingredients like vegetables, even the quality of the fruit of breakfast buffet seemed way superior. Fourthly, more dishes appeared to be made to order and less mass-produced. On regular lines, dishes are batch cooked because they have to be turned out on scale. There are hundreds or even thousands of cruises being served at the same time. On ultra-luxury ships, the kitchens are only serving a few hundred, and as the menus are so large, they need to make more dishes to order to basically serve people. Fifth, there was more ability to personalize dishes by changing or adding vegetable sauces and so on. Sixth, there were of course some more exotic touches. On Silversea, I could have as much caviar as I wanted, and on Regent they had caviar breakfasts at least once a week, and both ran sprawling exotic brunches during the cruise. Silversea even had a fancy chocolate buffet one evening. Though I was surprised to find that all dining was not included in the fare, or there were some limits. While Regent did include all specialty dining, I could only go once to each, but I could try and get extra bookings during the cruise, of course. Silversea charged for dining in two venues, Kaiseki the Asian and La Dame the French one. Another thing I was less keen on was that ultra luxury had no informal dining buffet in the evening, unlike regular cruise lines. I really missed not having that option, as both turned them into Italian waiter-served restaurants each evening and scrapped the buffet. Many first-timers to ultra luxury I spoke to on both trips said they didn't find as big a difference to regular cruising as they expected. When it comes to dining, in my view, it was elevated, the choice bigger, and the quality was higher. But it's probably not as massive a leap as many expect. And talking of people on the cruise, one question I had coming in was, would passengers on ultra luxury be snootier, harder to relate to, or very different to those on regular cruise lines? What I found was rather surprising on several fronts. First, I saw the same bad behaviors as I see on all the regular cruises I've been on. Chair hogs at the pool, cruisers doing FaceTime calls or watching videos on speakerphone, and reminders in the daily program, as on regular lines, asking passengers not to slam cabin doors, not to reserve lounges and theatre seats, not to use the guest laundry room outside set hours, stick to the smoking areas, the dress code, and so on. Second, I found the same things popular on regular cruises are on ultra luxury ones too. Trivia was packed, live music and shows busy, talks well attended, and like on regular cruises, many would avidly be collecting points for attending the different activities to redeem for branded merchandise and gifts at the end. In fact, the biggest realization was that ultra luxury cruises just want the same things as regular cruises. They want a comfy cabin, good food, good service, some entertainment, good company, interesting ports, and of course, great excursions. The passengers were, of course, relatively well off to afford it. They were well traveled, and I found most had been on lines of all types. Many of them moving from regular to ultra luxury once their kids had grown up, because they now wanted a slightly more adult environment. It was smaller, more laid back, and they actually had much less need for constant entertainment being available. And they weren't as flashy as I had expected. For example, it wasn't any more dressy than regular cruise lines. In fact, it was less dressy, if anything. On Regent, we could actually wear jeans and polo shirts to meals, which is not allowed on some regular cruise lines. Of course, the biggest difference between regular and ultra luxury is the price. A balcony cabin on resort lines like Royal Caribbean or Norwegian can cost from about $150 a night. On premium lines like Holland America or Princess, they can cost from at least $300 a night. On luxury small ship lines like Viking or Oceania, you're talking about $600 a night. But on Silversea and Regent and other ultra luxury lines, it's at least $1,000 a night. And while there are more inclusions than regular lines like drinks, specialty dining, surfing, Wi-Fi, fitness classes, and gratuities, I found there was still some on costs, like for fancier wines, streaming level Wi-Fi, and for excursions on all but Regent. Though I did like the lack of push to upsell, with no photographers and promotion of packages, added charges, events, and so on. But I'm often asked and wondered myself if the added fare is good value versus regular lines. Now, if I look at the difference in cost and deducted the physical things included like drinks, gratuities, dining, and so on, Unless you're cruising in a fancy suite on regular lines, you don't get the added value back in physical things. In fact, for that price, you'll actually get a smaller cabin on an ultra-luxury line, as I mentioned earlier, than on regular lines. What I realized is I was paying for a smaller ship, more laid back, less busy, quieter, a more pampered experience. There's less entertainment, fewer activities, but there's no lines and more personal service. And while ultra-luxury line smaller ships can offer some itinerary differences, like on my Regent Splendor Caribbean, we went to St. Bart's that regular lines can't call on because they can't cope with the numbers. Or ultra-luxury lines can dock in the heart of cities, while regular line larger ships have to go to the larger container ports. Largely speaking, they still cover the same key regions as regular lines, I guess because that's where people want to go. The biggest difference between regular and ultra-luxury is the calmness and the space. There's more space per guest. There's more crew. There's no lines. There's no getting your card out to pay for anything. You're really paying the premium for the smallness, the quietness, attention, and boutique hotel style plushness of the ship. So if you're looking for lively nights and want lots of choice and lots going on, like a big regular cruise line ship can give you, ultra-luxury definitely could feel rather quiet and less appealing. But if ultra-luxury does appeal to you, join me over in this video where I compare all of them and help you find out which is best for you and why. See you over there.